As humans evolve technologically and socially, the products they construct will become more advanced. Over centuries of development, flight has seen significant changes from its inception to the start of World War II as gliders evolved into planes manufactured solely to wreak havoc. Follow us on a journey through man-powered flight from the early 1500s to 1939. The first documented designs of machines that can fly while carrying people came from the Renaissance era. Da Vinci and other scientists drew sketches for different flying machines, such as the ornithopters. However, none of these contraptions were functional, and manned flight didn't see any advancements for 2.5 centuries. In 1783, the first manned flight was conducted with a hot air balloon in Paris, France. The Montgolfier brothers, the people behind the achievement, were interested in aeronautics and testing the boundaries of what was possible. Over many years, ballooning became a recreational activity for wealthier Europeans. Sources of fuel for the balloons varied, as scientists tended to use hydrogen gas and citizens relied on coal gas, as it was cheaper and more available. The next advancement in aviation came in the form of the airship in 1852, and later the Zeppelin in 1899. Although airships also use a balloon to escape the ground, the balloon itself is more oblong and an engine propels the vehicle forward. These devices were designed to have better steering capabilities than hot air balloons, making them more controllable than their balloon predecessors. The first of these airships was believed to have been flown in France by Henry Giffard in 1852 using an airship with a steam engine, and it is considered to be the first powered airship. However, there were still improvements to be made as the airship couldn't return to its starting position. This was resolved in 1884 by Charles Renard and Arthur Krebs using the electric-powered La France. The first Zeppelin began construction in 1899, and its takeoff procedure was easier than the typical airship because the hull could be aligned with the wind with less effort. Although their initial purpose was for transportation, airships were used in both world wars as scouts and bombers. Gustav Whitehead was a German man who moved to the United States and designed engines and machines for flight. This was most of his work between the years of 1897 and 1915. Whitehead claimed that he successfully conducted a manned and powered flight using a monoplane in Fairfield, Connecticut. Some people, when asked, said that they witnessed that particular flight or similar occurrences. Jane's All the World's Aircraft, an annual aviation publication, accepted that Whitehead's flight was the first manned and powered flight in the history of a heavier-than-air machine. Some institutions still refuse that Whitehead had the flight he claims he did, and gives the credit to the most famous brothers in history. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, began their journey to becoming the most famous aviators in history by designing gliders and kites from 1900 to 1902. Although their initial models were lackluster, they created a wind tunnel, a large tube with air blowing through it to simulate flight, and mechanisms to measure certain values like lift and drag. Using this information, the brothers used wing warping and installed a low-power internal combustion engine to attempt to counter these obstacles. On December 17, 1903, the Wright brothers conducted several flights over the day, with the most notable being the first traveling 120 feet in 12 seconds and the fourth covering 852 feet in 59 seconds. After adjusting their design over a few years, Wilbur and Orville's plane in October 1905 went 24 miles in 39 minutes and 23 seconds. When the First World War began, aerial combat between planes was impossible as the gun wasn't set on a steady point to assist the gunner's aim. Although airships were now capable of destruction, as the first reconnaissance and bombing missions occurred on October 23, 1911 and November 1, 1911 respectively. Roland Garros, a Frenchman, solved this problem in 1914 by fixing a machine gun towards the front of his plane. World War I marked the first homicide by plane as well. After the Great War, airplanes were transformed from weak biplanes made of wood to slender and more durable aluminum monoplanes. Interest in improving the planes continued as prizes for new records were given by newspaper companies and other organizations. During this period, the Zeppelin and airship were beginning to be used less frequently following fatal accidents, such as when the Hindenburg crashed in New Jersey on May 6, 1937. The airships and Zeppelins were slowly scrapped and their materials were used to craft new planes. All of the progress made from Da Vinci's drawings to World War I led to even more advancements in aviation. The first helicopter was tested a few weeks after the start of World War II, and the jet fighter followed soon after. Using the technology invented for previous flying machines, the technology was adapted for more applications. At first, the reason for testing the limits of flight were pure curiosity, but then the driving factors mostly involved the military. No matter what the reason was, these individuals have influenced the world for centuries to come as commercial airlines and military jets have become more prevalent in our society. Flight will continue to evolve because of the work of scientists decades to hundreds of years ago.